You ever feel like a swan? Just gliding so calmly on the surface for everyone to see, but underneath you're paddling like crazy just to stay afloat? Well, that feeling, it actually has a name: high-functioning anxiety. It's this hidden struggle behind what looks like a successful life. And today, we're going to uncover what it is, why it's so common, and most importantly, how to find some calmer waters.
So, let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of it. Does this sound at all familiar to you? You're a high achiever, you're checking all the right boxes, at work, in your social life, maybe even at the gym. From the outside, you look like the picture of success. But on the inside, it's just this constant, frantic race against a clock that only you can hear. And that's the core conflict for so many people.
And this slide really captures that perfectly. On one side, you have what the world sees: someone who's confident, calm, a real achiever. But then you look at the other side, and that's the internal reality: a storm of constant worry, a mind that just will not stop overthinking, and this nagging fear that you're not good enough. It's literally like living two different lives in one body, and the effort to keep them separate is just exhausting.
So that brings us to our first section, which we're calling the mask of success. Because really, that's what it feels like: a carefully built mask that hides the whole struggle from the outside world. Okay, so what is high-functioning anxiety exactly? Here's the most important part. It is not a formal diagnosis you're going to find in a medical textbook. Nope, it's a term we use to describe a very real experience. Having all the classic symptoms of anxiety, but somehow you're still managing to do great in your daily life. The real takeaway here is that just because the label isn't official doesn't mean the struggle isn't real. It absolutely is. All right, so now let's peel back that mask. In this next section, we are diving deep into what's really going on underneath that successful surface.
And here's where it gets really tricky. From the outside, high-functioning anxiety can look a lot like just being ambitious. Being an overachiever, a perfectionist, always needing to be busy and productive. Society doesn't just accept these traits, it celebrates them. And that's what makes it so hard to spot as a problem. The anxiety itself kind of becomes the engine for all your achievements, creating this cycle that feels impossible to get out of.
But behind that productive exterior, this is the reality. It's a mind that never stops, overthinking every single conversation, replaying every mistake. It's this inability to ever truly relax, not even on vacation. It's trouble sleeping because your brain just refuses to switch off. This is the hidden, exhausting price of keeping up those appearances. Now, this constant internal battle, it isn't just tiring. It can have some really serious consequences. And that brings us to a crucial point: the powerful and often overlooked link between anxiety and depression. Just take a look at this number for a second. 60%. According to the National Alliance for Mental Illness, a full 60% of people with an anxiety disorder will also have to deal with symptoms of depression. This is not a small overlap, people. It is a massive red flag. It shows that chronic, untreated anxiety can really pave the way for a much deeper struggle.
So if it's so common, why don't more people get help? Well, this quote right here gets to the absolute core of it. When your anxiety shows up as perfectionism or this relentless drive to succeed, it's so easy to mistake it for a strength, a feature, not a bug. You might even tell yourself, hey, this is just what makes me successful, without realizing the heavy toll it's taking on your mental health.
And this is exactly why it is so important to talk about this stuff. Recognizing there's a problem is the very first step, and understanding why it's so hard to take that step is the next one.
So let's break down these barriers. First, to the entire outside world, you look like you are absolutely crushing it, so nobody even thinks to ask if you're okay. Second, like we just talked about, you might even see your anxiety as your superpower. And third, the entire battle is internal, completely hidden from sight. It's really the perfect storm for making someone feel totally and utterly alone.
And this right here is maybe the most important message of this whole explainer. Don't get hung up on the label. While high-functioning anxiety might not be an official diagnosis, the underlying condition, something like generalized anxiety disorder, is very real. And the best news of all, it's also highly treatable. So how do you start on that path to feeling better? Let's walk through some of the most effective, evidence-based ways to manage anxiety and, get your peace of mind back. So the two main pillars of treatment are therapy and medication. On one hand, you've got psychotherapy, also known as talk therapy.
This is all about learning practical tools to understand and change the thought patterns that are fueling your anxiety. And on the other hand, medication can work on a biological level, helping to rebalance your brain chemistry. And for a lot of people, the most effective approach is actually a combination of both.
Let's zoom in on psychotherapy for a second. A really common and effective one is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. This isn't just talking about your feelings, it's about learning to become a detective of your own thoughts, identifying, challenging, and reframing the ones that trap you in that worry cycle. A therapist also gives you in-the-moment tools like breathing techniques to calm your nervous system down when you feel overwhelmed.
Now, on the medication side of things, there are several options a doctor might talk to you about. Some antidepressants are actually great for managing anxiety long-term. Other drugs, like buspirone, are designed specifically for anxiety. And for those really intense moments of panic, a doctor might prescribe something called a benzodiazepine for short-term relief. The key thing to remember here is that it's not one size fits all. Finding the right medicine and dose is a process you work on with your doctor.
So when is it time to actually reach out? Look for these signals. If the anxiety is starting to hurt your relationships or chip away at your self-esteem, if you feel like the worry is a runaway train that you just can't control, or, and this is a big one, if you find yourself using alcohol or drugs just to quiet your mind, those are all really clear signs that it's time to talk to a professional. And please remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, and anxiety is very, very treatable.
And we'll end with this question for you to think about. Just take a moment to reflect on your own life, or maybe the lives of people you care about. Is that drive to succeed, that perfectionism, that need to always be busy? Is it a source of joy, or is it a mask for a deeper struggle? Because knowing the difference, that's the first step to feeling so much better.